So I was able to look at the document he sent me. So it looks like some things are good here. But let me just
Yeah.
confirm. So last time my notes I have you're gonna work with your physician in your country to do the TB cell profile, which came
Yeah.
you got back, which we'll go over. And the goal of that is to really see if you were still fighting any kind of infections that were systemic in your body. And then you were going to talk to your physician in your country about getting the MRI scan of your whole spine. Were you
Yeah.
able to order? Did you do it or no?
How do we say that? She wants me to come to Stockholm to talk to her about it. So I think we're probably better off gonna go to just do it in the US.
Okay. Season.
And I think based on the information we got here, Dr. Krasny was basically it doesn't matter if it's prescribed by a doctor or not. We can go get it ourselves.
Yeah.
And the
In the
result is
US? Yeah.
because of translations, getting it in the US might be a bit easier, not dealing with different languages. So
Yeah. In the US, depending on the state, but I know, for example, for sure in California, I'm not sure what state you'll be visiting, but you can easily look it up. They're just radiology centers open to the public that just go in there and get like a full body MRI, and it's just a screening preventive tool, and we can certainly help you with that when you're here. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Um, okay, so we're doing that. And then you talked to your physician about armor to help with your muscles, and that seemed to be a good thing. Seemed like you made a connection there with thyroid hormones and your muscle endurance, which was one of the other things we talked about. We'll go over that in 1 second here. And then
Yeah.
the other thing we talked about was potentially getting B12 injections at some point since you had intrinsic factor antibodies. But you didn't have any signs of B12 deficiency or anemia yet, but we just thought it could be something you could do preventatively. And then we're going to have you just monitor your total white blood cell count, which your recent blood test showed it was like up to 3, it was 2.2 before. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's a good sign. So let me pull up that document, and I know you put a lot of questions on that. This is what I really wanted to see right away, which was your blood test. So
Yeah.
this was
Same.
just was this past month, right? 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. I think it was the 8th
Okay.
of March.
So if we take a look at it, you highlighted things that were out of range, like your phosphorus just being 2.5 out of range is not a big deal. And then I wouldn't really worry about your AP lipoprotein with the other
Mhm.
markers you fine. Total cholesterol 228. With your other markers, you know, I wouldn't again, not really a focus concern right now. Glucose was 99. That's right on the border. That's okay, right there. Neutrophil was 1.3. That's just 0.1 difference, no big deal. Your total white blood cell count was 3, which is good because you want that, it's 2.2 before. One should eventually get to, mid 3.5 number would be ideal. Hopefully your system just needs time. And a lot
Yeah.
of like thyroid hormone, if your thyroid hormones are really low, which sounds like they may have been because it really made an impact from your history you sent about your
Yeah.
muscle movements, like that has a huge impact on the immune system too.
Oh,
So, yeah, I mean, every single like thyroid hormones control the metabolic rate for all cells, including immune cells. So,
okay.
like when you're deficient, people have all diverse weird kind of symptoms, abnormal lab tests. So it may be as you're trying to adjust and figure out your dosage that works best for you, you can continue to see some improvements there. I don't think like you're missing a magic supplement to raise that. The key thing would be just to making sure you're getting a lot of sleep. Like
Which
that's
I
one of the
am.
most profound things to increase white blood cells. And it seems like you still have some environmental issues, like you went to the gym, complained about having a reaction there. And just so you know, when you go into like a gym or building, it doesn't have to be mold. There's in the field of toxicology, they call something called toxic building syndrome. Toxic building syndrome means there's a lot of chemicals and other compounds in the air that some people are really reactive to. It doesn't have to be mold, you know.
Okay.
So remember, like you remember the FEMA hurricane event, Katrina, where they gave everyone those campers to use, and everyone got sick. That was a huge explosion of toxicology research. And they used
Oh no.
toxic building syndrome, and they just realized there's so many volatile chemicals in those campers and other things. So
Yeah.
that's have to be mold. But if you notice a reaction to something, you have to want to avoid that. Are there any other things like that? Because that can also have an impact on white blood cells if you're constantly getting exposed to buildings or tossing it back.
I know I haven't been back there at all, and the only other time that kind of thing happens is like when I fly. I don't actually know if it's circadian rhythm or if it's sometimes I seem to be okay, or if there's things in like the ventilation of the aircraft that could be
Yeah,
getting to me.
I'm not
Um,
sure. That's hard. It's hard. It's gonna be hard to distinguish.
I only say that because it's a similar reaction, just where like I don't know, super depression, and just like I just lay in bed for a few days. Like I don't care or want to do anything. So it's the same. That's why I say.
It's probably maybe it is chemical. I mean, it doesn't sound like a circadian rhythm thing.
Well, yeah,
It's hard to say. I mean, that's just when
love to know.
it's off. It's like it's so hard to figure out some things sometimes. Like you're just trying to, you know,
I always just want to know why. Like it's
yeah.
interesting to me.
Well, if I mean, the phenomenon you have is not uncommon. People have those reactions to environments and chemicals, and then
Yeah.
just don't know like how to fix it.
Uh,
And some people just get healthier and they start to improve. There isn't like, oh, we know it's this specific cell, and this is the marker we use, and this is the treatment. Like, and it might not be one variable. It might be like a multivariable disease. There's so many things
yeah,
play with each other, so it's not linear. But
it's brutal one way or
talk about your
another.
TB cell. Your
Okay.
TB cell profile looks good. Okay.
Yes.
One of the things we want to look for is see if you had a pattern of an active infection.
Hmm.
Out of an active infection is going to be some very unique things that happen. First of all, when people have infections that are active, natural killer cells go up. Okay.
Yeah.
Yours are normal. So like your absolute natural killer cell count was 190. The range is 24 to 406. So kind of like right in the middle range area. And then your percent of natural killer cells were 16%. Now, sometimes when people have really severe chronic infections, the white blood cells get depleted, but you're really in the high end or middle normal range, which means they're just healthy. They're not activated or depleted.
Right.
So the chance of you having like a systemic infection, and with the helminth infection was something that was a mystery for a long time. And I think after you kind of exhausted all the pharmaceutical options and you get to speak with the expert parasitologist, it was a good idea to stop all those meds because it was probably making you worse. And
Yeah.
if you actually had a systemic helminth infection, like it was going into your organs, into all your systems, it would probably raise this. Like a localized GI parasite infection, we don't see that raise these numbers.
Okay. Wish I would've done
If it
that.
goes into your into your whole system and it's in your organs, that could be a pattern. I don't know. There's always a little, we don't know for sure. We're just making the best assumptions. The other things we
Yeah.
see with an active infection, these cells called T helper cells go up and T suppressor
Mhm.
cells go down.
Mhm.
And those are fine with you. So, as a matter of
Okay.
fact, most of it looks like you're kind of in the mid range for most of them. Your B
Yeah.
count is just on the lower end. This is the CD19 count, B lymphocyte count. Typically, like when we see people with a B cell count low, what we use to help build that up is just increasing their antioxidants, like resveratrol, turmeric, green tea, whatever like antioxidant compound you like to take. That's
Mhm.
You just find which one you like, try it. So, and just it's not a specific one, but usually we like to use those types of things.
For
That's a
the
major thing with this. So that's kind of like one of the questions asked clinically is, do you have an active infection somewhere? Do you really have this
yeah.
stomach health response? You don't have that. And even for a person that has autoimmunity, you don't have like a pattern of complete immune dysfunction, immune dysregulation. Like your immune system is pretty healthy.
Right. That's great.
Hmm.
I am so happy.
Good. Okay, so let's
So
go.
the CD19 that you were pointing at, which cells are those?
Those are B cells.
Okay.
B cells make antibodies, and they're not low. They're not like insufficient. You could they're just if you want to increase them a little bit. They do have an anti-inflammatory effect.
The antioxidants for those. Okay.
Yeah, but you're already taking a bunch of stuff. So
Great.
we can go over the list. I just remember going over earlier. Okay. So that was like one of the things I really wanted to see. And then when I was
Yeah.
reading your report, when you was reading the summary, you were telling me of how things are since the last visit in this document. I know you have a lot of questions here, but the muscle weakness thing being related to the thyroid hormones was really, really good to see that you were able to identify that. And you were able to
I
push up. So tell me more about that. You noticed right away after you increased your dose. What happened?
Well, so I took a couple extra notes on that, like, so just in the last week, I'm like, well, why don't I just try dosing myself up higher and see what happens? And it seems to help every time I increase it. So I think I tried up to 60 micrograms of T3, and
Yeah.
I seem to feel like better and better. I still have a slight dip. I think 5 or 6 hours is when it seems to wear off. And but it's only helping. Like
Yeah.
I feel kind of like disbelief that that's having such a huge impact. And I gotta say, we left what I think was a moldy or a toxic house in Japan at the same time that we moved here, and they lowered my dose. They've been talking me out of the medicine since I got here,
Oh,
and I never noticed, like, it was trading one bad thing for another, and so I didn't notice the symptom change, like,
yeah.
between the two things.
Yeah. And the thing is that you should be aware of if you end up like as you continue to experiment with your dosage, working with your practitioner there. If you do take too much, you're gonna if the key symptoms are you'll just feel like anxious and nervous and inward trembling. That's when it's like way too much.
I've never had it. I took accidentally too much before for a long time, and I never had that symptom ever.
That's great.
So,
So
yeah.
something just to still to be aware of, yeah. Uh, okay, so that's good. Now the facial so what did you notice too? You said something about your facial and by the way, like your thyroid hormones being really low can really also be a big reason why you're recovering slowly from some of your brain trauma. Because thyroid
I,
hormones are like critical for neuron connectivity, neuroplasticity. Like children that have hypothyroidism during
yeah.
mother's hypothyroid during pregnancy, they have like mental retardation for the rest of their life. The neurons don't grow and they don't synapse. It's like a really big deal to check thyroid when someone's pregnant. And then
Well,
children with developmental delays, if they're hypothyroid, they break out of that. They can never get
well,
their.
they wanted to take me off of T3 because they were saying that it can keep you from getting pregnant if that was something I wanted to do.
Yeah, I don't know why they would say that.
Okay. I don't know either.
So,
So,
yeah. So when I was just going to show you this here, this, like when you look at the form, the brain regional localization form, like
oh, right, this one.
we see this frontal lobe injury, which
Yeah.
you've had from multiple accidents. So what you want to pay attention to is as you get into like several months of actually having thyroid hormones, your body has to have to function, right? Do these functions improve? So these are just planning, organizing, making decisions. You're just your overall brain endurance, your executive functions, your planning,
Mhm.
organizing, those types of symptoms or we want to see if they change. You want
Yeah.
to make sure you continue to do those things because you still want to like stimulate those pathways.
Do what things?
Things that really require attention, focus, concentration.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
you know, and me want to like really focus on doing like a puzzle or some cognitive teasers or different things. Once you know your thyroid hormones are all, because like with anything, like if you injured your arm and it was atrophied, there's no way the arm is just going to come back by itself. You'd have to like move it, right?
Yeah.
And if you were like
Okay.
in a hypothyroid state and you had an arm injury and you tried to atrophy there and you try to like work out, you would like fatigue quickly because you can't.
Yeah.
Same thing's happening with the brain. So
Number 5, I noticed comes back on and flickers. Um, but yeah, okay, that's good.
so this is still like one of the key battles is, from our history with so many head traumas. Ultimately we want these to all be, ones or twos, overall your endurance, these symptoms to change. Now, when I was looking at your scale, like it seems like your brain endurance overall is getting, you have more good days, more fours than before, right? And then
Yeah.
fours are better, right? It's looking at your
Yes, 4 is better.
better, yeah. Now you have it over here somewhere. Somewhat strong, capable with some reserves. So that's pretty good. Do you think there was a direct relation between your thyroid hormones and your brain endurance?
Um, yes. Yes, because I feel more on
Okay.
when I'm taking more, like aware, alert, like my brain is thinking and it wants to think, and not avoiding. Like when I'm below the level of feeling well, I notice I'm trying to avoid everything.
Okay.
But not anymore, not so much.
And The most significant difference that I think we've noticed is in just the physical side of things, though. It's like,
Yes.
it's gone from, we try to go for a walk, every day. And it went from, there was literally like 85-year-old women that were passing married walking up the hill, it was in the
Like a
last,
slow hill, I have to stop and take a break. Yeah, it's bad. It was, but that goes away as soon as I start taking more thyroid medicine.
that has
I'm
gone away,
yeah.
in the last 2 weeks for sure.
Do you think
So,
I should mention any?
yeah, go
for
for
this
it.
stuff? Do you, would you be willing to share some of your opinions on how I can approach increasing my dosage? Like, right now they're only talking me out of the medicine, and so I'm just trying to figure, like online, I'm looking at an average dose, and I know you'd said all that's going to happen is I get nervous, and I feel like I'm just so completely under medicated that I've never felt nervous.
Can you,
I think they tried to talk me out of it because my TSH went to 0 so quick before my T3 and T4 even hit the bottom range.
yeah.
And so they were just basing it off of that, which kind of makes me nut.
So the only
crazy.
issue is that my scope of practice doesn't allow me, and I don't have the training or legal authority to give any advice on prescribed pharmaceutical
Okay.
medication. I would just tell you that, unspecific to giving you recommendations, what I've noticed with other patients, there is definitely trial and error. There is no like rules. People have to experiment with their dose. And you may have to find a practitioner that works for understanding what your needs are. You know what I mean? Like there is always that search to find the person doing it. And I would tell you, you're in Japan, or in the Nordic
We're
country.
in Sweden.
You're in Sweden, yeah, like Sweden,
Mhm.
Nordic country, like Sweden. Um, some of those countries they're definitely like freaked out about T3. They don't like to use T3 for the most part, and I don't know,
Oh,
like
well, we're prepared to
T3
travel
positive
back.
fertility is like I've never even heard of that. I spent so much time about the thyroid, I've heard even say that, and um, you know, it's you're in a situation where if you were in a different country, you would have completely different top physicians addressing your case in a different manner altogether. And then if you're working with people that just work with thyroid hormones, and that's their
Yeah.
expertise, they would not have any hesitation doing stuff. You're just working with people that may not. You're just following the very basic norm, which the norm is like give everyone a synthetic T4 at this
Yeah.
dose as long as their labs are normal. But if you read the literature, like in that literature, I did a course just in Hashimoto's, and it showed all the studies being published, and they're like, you cannot just base it on TSH. Like modern and endocrinology journals are like, you have to have resolution of symptoms and improvements in trial and error, because that's part of the follow-up evaluation of trying to find the right dose.
Yeah. If you have any referrals for somebody in the US, or if you can offer any pointers on who to go to, I've been, we're probably just gonna have to come back to the US just to get thyroid medicine at this point, because I can't go through life without the right
Yep.
dose.
Yep. I have a patient of mine that is in Tokyo. Same thing with him. He comes to Japan. He has to come to the US for his thyroid management and treatment and hormone.
Okay, so that makes me feel better. Like I think like it's not just me. What we did from Japan too, we went to Los Angeles actually, and I might just go back to that woman, but she would give me what I needed based on what I told her, but she never gave me any, like, I didn't think she really knew what she was doing
You got
to
to
help
understand, there
me.
isn't like an exact science either. There isn't like an
Yeah.
exact protocol. There's a lot of, if the practitioner is open to listening to your symptoms and
Yeah.
monitoring you with labs, that's
Yeah.
really that's a good situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. I do have a question. Do you have anything to say about the correlation with physical exertion and the level of T3 that you might need to take? Because of the leg
There's a couple
weakness when
things
I
you gotta be
work
careful.
out more.
There's a couple things I would just warn you and like make sure you understand. So your level of endurance and fatigue isn't directly related to your thyroid hormones. Your level of fatigue is related to your thyroid hormones turning on your metabolic rate. as it turns on your metabolic rate, you're going to start to have potential to make more mitochondria, which is the energy powerhouse of cells. The amount of mitochondria you make won't be directly related to the amount of thyroid hormones you have. You just have potential to make it, right? So let's say you need to build 40% more mitochondria in your muscle to really feel like you used to be or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So like if you just start dosing high, you won't get to 40%. As you dose with the normal level your body needs and you actually work out and develop muscles and develop mitochondria connections and growth over time, just like everyone else does,
Yeah.
probably see your levels continue to improve. So what I'm trying to say is like there'll be a big bump like you're noticing when you're taking the thyroid hormones. You're not going to continue having that bump. Okay.
Of energy.
Yeah, you'll plateau, but now your body's in a point where you can make mitochondria. You can make your muscle or cells grow and become more metabolically active. So as you continue to exercise, your endurance and your muscles and all things will continue to improve. But when you're in a deficient hypothyroid state, you can't even activate those mitochondrial pathways, which are your powerhouse of the cell.
Yeah.
So what I would say is find a dosage that works for you, but don't expect like the honeymoon to continue for months and months and months. You'll plateau, which means your body has what it needs, and then you're just like everyone else. Like your endurance will be based on you can walk 2 miles, but you can't walk 3. After some time you can walk 3, but you can't walk 5. And like your muscles have to actually build that machinery of energy.
So I say that because I've had my legs get super, super weak for like 2 days, but that stopped as soon as I upped my T3 dosage.
And
And it goes away after a few hours of a leg workout.
Yeah, and so in the beginning, like when you first are deficient and do that, you'll probably notice those big things. But over time, you're not going to notice
Okay.
as much, and it'll just be you're on the you figured out a dose that works for your body, and then you just have to be consistent. And then
Okay.
you'll build endurance just like everyone else will have to over time.
Okay. That makes sense.
But I want to, I mean, maybe to follow on to that question, Dr. Kresge. So, I mean, in the bumping up the thyroid medication, noticing that extended leg weakness that's happening afterwards. So understood that there's a difference between endurance, which is kind of what you're
Like
describing,
fitness level,
growing
right?
over
Yeah.
time, but that immediate effect. So I want to understand. So if Mary at some point in the next 2 months is on like a thyroid medication of, let's say, 10 micrograms more, and that was working really well, but all of a sudden the leg weakness comes back again. Is that
I would say if the leg weakness came back again and we had a history, we would go, did you actually overdo it? Because you could exceed your mitochondria's metabolic capacity, like everyone can. Like
yeah,
you could go for a run and overdo it, and then like, oh, it's too much. Or you may have had the same level of activity, but you can't handle it 3 days in a row
yeah,
until you get more fit. You know what I mean? I would say if your leg gets weak or anything like that, just make sure you didn't exceed your fitness. And then maybe not just directly related, like, because now you have this linear fixation on the thyroid hormone. And the point is, it's important, but also remember there's other variables involved.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Um, the, the other thing I want to talk to you about here was this energy slump at 12 to 2.
Yeah.
Typically, we see that when blood sugar levels drop. And you do have a lot of blood sugar symptoms here now.
Hmm.
Are you missing meals? Are you eating frequently enough?
I don't miss meals. What's that?
What's happening in the afternoon?
I don't know. So I eat at what, like 7, 9, 11, and if I need to at 2 and 4. And so I think it's partly thyroid. I think that I take the thyroid medicine at like 7 and I think it's worn off. And if I take it more like 12 or 11, it's kind of difficult with lunch.
Yeah.
But it seems to help.
Yeah.
Like there's days where I don't have that. And it seems to be the days that I take the second thyroid dose earlier.
Okay.
I was taking the second dose more like 1 or 2 p.m. before, and I can see why that would maybe be correlating with the slump.
Yeah. Okay. Um,
I think there is something going on with my like doing HIIT and like working out, even though I'm eating frequently, I think there is something with blood sugar, but
something's
I don't.
happening because like energy levels is one thing, but like craving sweets specifically and
Mhm.
irritable if meals are missed, that's a drop in blood sugar. That's not just your metabolic rate. So,
Okay.
maybe the thyroid hormones are impacting how your blood sugar is stabilizing and so forth. But what are you eating at the different time periods? At 7 and
It's
11.
like protein, avocado, olive oil,
Okay.
um,
At
some
7
cauliflower. It's
and at
keto.
11, and you're in ketosis the whole time. You're in
Uh,
ketosis.
yeah,
And you're craving
yeah,
sugar with ketosis.
yes.
Okay.
So sometimes I have eaten more protein, so that would be beyond the ratio of
Yeah.
what 80/20. That's not like that's infrequently, but I have noticed that eating more protein seemed to help.
Okay. Hmm. So you did a 7 and 11 and what time again?
7, 9, 11,
It's every 2 hours.
sometimes, and then 2 and 4.
And you're crashing
Sometimes I go without the 2. Hmm?
now. Is the crash may also be mental fatigue. Like sometimes your brain fatigues, all of a sudden there's increased demands for fuel, and you can crave things. Um,
Yeah, that has happened. I wouldn't say that I'm not using my brain right now. Like,
you're not okay.
no, sadly.
Okay, well, keep looking for relationships there. I mean, there's got to be something. So you're eating every two
Yeah,
hours.
we had a question if we want to try, you said to trial out of keto, and I had taken that to mean like a meal or a snack here and there with carbs, and Justin was
Yeah.
thinking, no, I think you need weeks or like to trial out. So that was my question about keto.
Um,
Let's see. Whoop, it
you
would have
can
been,
you can you could just
oh,
not be in ketosis with one meal. I mean, all it takes is one meal to drop out of ketosis.
to notice a difference,
Oh,
you're saying do trial and error
oh, you would
on a
know, right?
keto.
Like if you for you, like since it's related to energy and brain and
Should be
that's
immediate, right?
sensitive to be immediate.
Okay. Um, all right,
It
then,
would it does just say for sure in the first couple days or something, like first day, first meal. How you would know. I would
uh,
only guess. And then
um, so a lot of this is based around, these questions are based around, you had said trial and error and like listen to your body, it'll let you know.
yeah,
And I said, okay. And then I realized like I had had a previous food sensitivity test and like none of the things that showed up high were anything that gave me symptoms. So I kind of wanted to revisit that and yeah.
okay. And revisit that like trying foods, or you want to retest?
Well, no, like understanding better how to proceed with food in general based on your feedback.
Yeah.
Like because when I had sunflower seeds and peanuts and I had no clue that that was anything that was bothering me. If that was just a loss of immune tolerance, that's just an example.
Yeah, these
This
ones.
was the first thing that you went over with my initial exam.
Yeah.
And so then maybe it's just a loss of tolerance, or if you had other guidance on how
So
to
yeah, like
proceed eating.
yeah, I understand the frustration you have, many people have, because it's not so clear and like you can have a reaction on a food panel that doesn't cause a lot of symptoms. It's like 3+, and then you can have something that's very low and causes severe reactions with some people when they eat it. It's not always that base. I would say if you feel like you can't do too many things at once, if you're still playing with your thyroid hormones, I would just
Yeah.
work with your thyroid hormones for that, and kind of work through that. And then once you kind of figure that out, then you might want to start introducing different foods in your diet and see how you do. The first thing was just to maybe take a break from ketosis, and then with your gut being sensitive, you might have to figure out how much fiber you can handle and how much carbs you can handle, and then
Mhm.
you might just not feel like it's working for you. You might have to go back into ketosis. And this is because you have such a history of neuroinflammation. That's why it's an
Mhm.
extremely sensitive thing, I think, for you. That might be a problem for you. But experiment and see what you do. Don't worry about food sensitivity reactions yet. I mean, gluten, dairy, you definitely want to be avoiding because they're so inflammatory. But
So with
so let me ask you
those,
these questions for you. 3, 4, and
yeah.
10, are these doing these? Is there any value? Non-obvious levels of food activity. I mean, don't worry about those. It's Ray
What
4.
about the celiac one though?
Yeah, the celiac one again. Don't do gluten or dairy. Stay away from gluten and dairy.
Yeah.
Um, but as far as like if you test for corn, like the most reactive foods are corn, like gluten, dairy, soy, and eggs. Those are the most reactive foods. So those for sure you want to avoid. Okay.
Mhm.
To some degree, if not altogether. Gluten, dairy for sure, but corn maybe some people can tolerate. Some people can't. Um, I would say experiment and just see how you feel. Don't be too freaked out about it.
And when you say experiment with just all
I would
kinds
say
of different
first get
things.
out of ketosis and see if you can handle ketosis. And then once you're out of ketosis, start adding like some different sources of fiber in because you can lean towards a
Mhm.
FODMAP diet. And then
Yeah.
see how your body can adjust to that. And then if you're like, I don't feel as good, I don't feel as, but you can't like, don't do it until you figure out your thyroid hormones and you're stable because you're gonna like misinterpret stuff.
Right. One thing at a time.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Uh, do you have any comments, Justin? Anything else?
I don't know, food.
So one thing, the potassium under
Yeah.
miscellaneous questions, let's see, I'm on like I know you had said the salt reactivity. I don't remember, I don't know if you had given me the potassium for that, but my question of, let's see, it was above the food reactivity questions, above.
Here.
On the questionnaire for the appointment.
Oh, what page is that on?
It was question number 5
Oh,
under miscellaneous. Go up. I think it's at the top.
oh,
There, up there. One more up. Up. Go up.
oh, up this way.
Yeah.
This is
Up one more page. Is that the top page?
that's the only top. That's my top page. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's weird. It's cut off.
What's the question?
It's so the potassium, I've been taking it only in the evening to keep it away from the 2 separate doses of thyroid medicine that I've been taking.
Yeah.
Is that removing the benefit that you intended if it was for salty food only at once a day, or does it need to be taken with the food?
I mean, potassium bicarbonate is really there. If you get exposed to salty food, just take some with it.
But
You don't have to even take it if you haven't had any salty food.
okay.
Yeah.
And then
Because we're not suspecting you have a full-blown deficiency. We just know that salt can trigger autoimmunity. And then if you have something salty, we just want you to mitigate it.
yeah, I've been
Because the study was shown that it mitigates it.
okay.
On the food thing, Dr. Kresgen, I think just to be clear, I know you're saying avoid gluten and dairy, but I think Mary was asking a question on here about the severity of like when if we go to a restaurant and like cross-contamination, like if there's like a molecule of dairy on a fork or something, like
Yeah,
is
it's
that
just
like
different. It's unpredictable. It's honestly different for each person. Again, you might want to experiment and see like what you can tolerate.
Well, I know I won't, like, I have not had any reactions to even like, I could eat a bowl full of pasta right now and nothing would happen. But I know it's not good and that's why I'm not eating it.
Okay.
Like I'm not one of those people that ever had any reaction to anything besides maybe like mild constipation. And even that's,
except the bloating, but
yeah.
that's
Okay, well, be careful with it because sometimes the it's an accumulative thing where you're just like you just start eating certain things and then you don't know, but 3 weeks later you're just tired and run down, and it wasn't that one meal that did it, you know. And then some of these are IgG reactions,
Mhm.
which are like delayed immune reactions. So an IgG reaction can take 1 to 3 days to show up, So I wouldn't expect like you just finished a bowl of pasta and all of a sudden you feel completely ill and sick, you know?
I never do, yeah.
Yeah. But like 3 days later, your energy could be totally shot and you could feel different symptoms. That's what you want to look for because, you know, these are the reaction you're having are IgG,
Okay,
not allergies. Allergies
I
are
will,
I would
okay,
be
I will
careful. I would be
proceed with
careful. You know, the key
eating,
thing, the
like
key thing, I think
avoiding it.
the key thing for me isn't that you like really just expose yourself to a bunch of things like corn and soy and gluten and dairy. We don't want you to do that. We just want you to like, hey, can you handle not being in ketosis? Maybe you need to just have some glucose and carbs in your diet to function better, have some energy. You know, maybe you need a break from ketosis. And then your
Mhm.
body is going to tell you. It won't be like theoretical. Like you'll go, wow, I feel much better, or I
Yeah,
feel worse, or I don't feel any difference. And if you don't feel any difference, you don't have to be in a hard ketogenic diet. You know?
okay, okay. So let's see, my other question that is cut off is not on there. I did the neuroinflammation class, I did the autoimmunity
Oh, the
class.
Frosty one's nice. Good for you.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. Like
Sure.
that was probably the most fun I've had in the last year was taking those classes.
No, cool.
It helped so much like for me to understand what I'm doing, why. Um, I wanted to ask is I had originally started to think that I should take the gut class before I saw you. And I
Yeah,
looked to see what else you
Let
have.
Susan know what you want to take. She can get you organized rolling.
Do you have any suggestions based on what you see in my case that would be the most helpful?
So you took the autoimmune one and you took the neuro.
You did the neuroinflammation and the autoimmune one for practitioners, so the KI courses.
Yeah, you take those ones.
Those, I had looked at GI, fatigue, hormones, longevity, cognitive decline, but I don't know which ones you think would be the most applicable.
All of those.
Okay.
Oh.
I,
So
I love it.
GI would
It's
be a
so
good one. GI would
interesting.
be a good one for you.
What?
GI would be a good one for you to
I think so because you referenced it a lot in the autoimmunity class,
yeah,
but didn't read it. Okay, wow, thanks.
sure.
Um, and then I had a question for you, but it's kind of a side question. I don't know if you want to stop the recording if
Sure.
I
Okay, we'll stop here then we'll just talk personally.